you know, for the longest period of time, we have seen kind of the shingle out. Are they going to look at everything? It hasn't been one or the other. Do you look at Republicans? Do you look at Democrats? It's always been look at everything. That would be justice.
That is the charge of the special counsel investigation and this team. It's not to get Donald Trump. It's to find out what the Russians did in trying to interfere in our election. And anyone who gets swept up in that, Republican or Democrat, if they were engaged in wrongdoing, so be it. Let the chips fall where they may. I think the fact that the Podesta Group is apparently in the crosshairs of this investigation speaks well of Mueller and undermines the narrative among some on the right that this is a witch hunt designed to go after only one party. That doesn't seem to be the case right now.
Lisa?
Well, I think what we saw from yesterday's news is more of an indictment of the culture in Washington, D.C. than an indictment of President Trump thus far. We look at the culture of corruption with lobbying practices and also in politics. And in the lobbying aspect, we've really seen the Foreign Agents Registration Act come to the forefront, where you see both Paul Manafort, Rick Gates, Fusion GPS, the Podesta Group, all failing to register as essentially foreign agents of Russia and doing their bidding in the United States. We also look at politics and the dirty aspect of politics, taking meetings you probably shouldn't take, or paying millions of dollars to Fusion GPS to basically pay off Kremlin sources for disinformation. So I think what we've seen is basically the swamp in action, in essence, in the corruption in Washington, D.C.
That's what I was thinking as you were saying it out, you know, drain the swamp. I want to just go to something that the president tweeted out with regard to, you know, looking for or looking at all aspects of this. He says the fake news is working overtime. As Paul Manafort's lawyer has said, there was no collusion, as I mentioned, took place before he came to the campaign. Few people knew the young, low-level volunteer named George, who has already proven to be a liar. Check the Dems. Trish?
Well, check the Dems, I think, is a reference to just exactly what happened with this so-called dossier. Was the United States played in some way? Because were Russian sources feeding, as you say, disinformation to Christopher Steele, the British spy, who then was doing this work on behalf of Fusion GPS. So that's sort of what he means. There's a lot of questions there, and we haven't even gotten to Uranium One, which I know we'll talk about in a little bit. But I think the important thing here is we need answers. We need to find out just exactly what happened, and it's not necessarily, as Guy says, a partisan thing. I think there are lots of questions to go around, and I'm wondering how the heck our administration, the Obama administration, may have taken some of this hearsay from the British spy seriously enough to be looking as hard as they
One thing I want
were
to bring up, Republican Congressman Ron DeSantis, who we've had sit in our #OneLuckyGuy seat recently, proposed a measure to limit funding Mueller's probe to 6 months and restrict its scope. The one thing that the White House now, though, can look at is when this thing runs its course, it's over. But if you mess with it along the way, what does that do?
If the hope is to be vindicated, and we've seen the president tweeting in all caps, no collusion.
Yeah, well, there's no evidence, so I mean, it would be...
So if he is confident that they're going to chase all these threads and end up basically with nothing and vindication, doing anything to undercut or undermine the investigation is self-defeating, looks bad, terrible optics, and desperate and suspicious. And let Mueller do his work.